Welcome to Changing the Narrative. I'm your host, Sammika Cosey. Thank you all so much for tuning in and joining us. Today, we are joined by the amazing guest, Ms. Sonya Moore. She is the president of Parent Council at a local charter school here in Chicago, who decided to start a parent support group to help other parents who have children with an IEP. Thank you so much, Ms. Sonya Moore, for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
So I do want to share the story. So I actually met Sonya at the end of last year at a parent university event. And after having a conversation with her, I had to get her on Changing the Narrative, because she is out in Chicago changing the narrative, not just for her family, but for other families also.
Thank you so much. It was such a chance encounter, and you never know what paths are going to cross. So I am thankful to be a guest here to share my story.
So as we're speaking of your story, can you tell our listeners a little bit more about you, who you are, and what you do?
Yes, my name is Sonya Moore. I am 40 years old. I have a total of 3 children, of whom who are adults, and one 6-year-old. One 6-year-old, Audrey, who is on the autistic spectrum. And since Audrey has come into my life, it has changed for the best. Because of Audrey and her being on the spectrum, it has caused me to do a lot of community work, a lot of advocacy work. I attend a lot of workshops and do a lot of community work within the neighborhood and surrounding neighborhood. I am also the president of the Parent Council at Audrey's school.
Yes.
And because of that, it has put me on the path to meet other students and children like Audrey, as well as their parents.
And so now you just mentioned that you are the president of Parent Council.
Yes, I am.
Can you tell us about your role as the president of Parent Council?
So the first time that I ever got voted into being on the Parent Council, it was at Audrey's preschool, where she got early intervention. That role was vice president. And so I was kind of sitting back a little bit to get an idea of the role, and then the next year I became president. I liked it. I like networking. I like being in leadership. And so now that Audrey is in elementary school, I just carried those skills over to continue in the advocacy work that I do, to be a strong leader in my community, and to help those other parents who are in need just like I am.
And so now looking back before you became the president, before you became an advocate, what was that push that led you to start doing all of these things?
So I noticed that Audrey, that she was meeting her developmental milestones, but it was later than my other 2 children, which prompted me to get her early intervention. After doing it and being involved in the community and doing different workshops, I noticed that there was a need in the community that was not being addressed. And so after going through a long laundry list of looking for support groups, I noticed that there were long wait lists. So I decided, hey, let me create one. And that's what I did. I created my own support group, not only to support me, but other parents like me.
Now, what was that moment like for you? So I know from our previous conversation, you talked about how you were at one of the parent meetings that you all were having, and that's when you made that decision for the support group.
So my role as president, I work hand in hand with the executive director of the school, and with me having the presidency seat, I also facilitate the workshops. And so my first workshop for the school year 2024-2025 was on children with special needs and IEP. Our workshops are typically 1 hour. This one ran for 1 hour and almost 45 minutes.
Okay.
So that communicated to me there's a strong need for this particular subject. And it was that workshop that prompted me to start the support group.
And so now I know you mentioned that your daughter, she has an IEP, correct?
Yes, she does.
How was your experience before the support group? What was your experience like with going into the schools, dealing with IEPs, dealing with early intervention, and trying to process and understand it?
So, firstly, I am new to this journey. My other two children did not have an IEP, and so this was just a learning stage for me because it's something new, and I wanted to learn everything possible about it, which is why I was the president at her preschool and now currently the president at her elementary school because I wanted to have hands-on experience. I wanted to know everything about the IEP and what that stands for and all of the needs that needs to be met for Audrey. And so the experience, it hasn't been rough because I'm really hands-on.
Okay.
So with an IEP, there's an annual meeting. And in the annual meeting, it just basically addressed very thoroughly everything, her emotional needs, her social needs, her mental needs. And with Audrey's particular needs, she has sensory issues, like she can't listen to loud noises for too long, textures, things that feel a certain type of way. I wanted to know all of those things. And so I am really close-knit with her special education teacher. I am really close-knit with her general education teacher, as well as all of the therapeutic services that Audrey receives. They all know me by first name.
And now with her therapeutic services, does she just receive therapy services in school, or do you also have her receiving services outside?
Okay, so the therapy services, when you try to get it like private, which I tried to do, there's a long 2-3 year wait list.
Yes.
And so in this experience, I learned that the best plan of action is to get it through the school system because there isn't a wait period. And she's getting the services she needs right now. She doesn't have to wait. And just to be thorough, her services that Audrey receives is speech therapy. She has a pathologist that helps her with her speech that is growing every single day. And she has occupational therapy where it teaches her to write correctly and to use her fine motor skills. So, yeah.
Nice. Can you share a little bit more about her progress since she has, because I saw the smile on your face when you talked about speech. So can you tell our listeners how she was before and then her progress currently with receiving speech therapy?
So Audrey started attending preschool at 3 years old, like my other two children. And they noticed, like I did, that some of her milestones were delayed. And, she wouldn't communicate with no one but the adults. And that was just really through like body language and eyesight, things like that. Not really much verbal.
Okay.
Before she graduated at age 5, Audrey could say goodbye, good morning, hello everyone. And now that she is in first grade, she's been through kindergarten, and that was a transition where she had to adapt and learn the children's faces and things like that. But now at current day, Audrey asked me the other day, "Hi, Mommy, what are you doing?"
Oh, that is amazing.
That is a huge step for Audrey because she went to saying from no words to, hi, mommy, how are you doing?
Yes, and asking you a question.
What are you doing?
Yes.
Yes.
That is amazing.
Yes.
How did that make you feel in that moment?
I try my best to not let Audrey see me cry, because that was a thing before. Like when Audrey was 3, she couldn't read emotion. So I could sit in front of her and cry and she wouldn't be affected. Now at 6 years old, if Audrey sees me crying, she's gonna start crying. And that is growth, because she used to didn't show any emotion. And seeing that growth in her, it's amazing, because again, I'm around a lot of different community members and parents, and their children isn't making progress at all. And it's disheartening to see that, but at the same time, it's very rich and robust for me to see growth in Audrey. So it gives me hope that she could one day be self-sufficient and independent.
What would you share with a family, a mom or a dad or any other caretaker who is listening right now and they currently don't see that growth in their child?
So what I would say to parents that comes across this interview is that the first thing you should do, I would highly encourage to get early intervention. I would also encourage to not be ashamed. I noticed that in a community, there's a lot of people that are in denial because they don't want their child labeled. And I'll be the first to say I didn't want that either. I didn't want my child to be labeled or anything like that. But when God give us things to deal with, we have to sometimes embrace it and just receive what it is. Don't be ashamed. Don't be embarrassed, because all you'll do with that is delay your child from getting the services, the help, the advocacy, the therapies that they need. So in a nutshell, I would highly encourage to do early intervention.
Now, I know you just mentioned that in the beginning that you didn't want her to be labeled and to have that label.
Yes.
How long before you started pushing for early intervention once you saw that she was diagnosed?
1 month. 1 month. It was immediate. I got her into preschool because I thought that her lack of being able to speak verbally was due to no other children being in our home.
Socialization skills.
Right. I thought that, maybe she's just socially awkward. And I was like, so let me put her in preschool. Let's see how she work around other children. But those teachers, also being professionals, they noticed it as well. And so, immediately, as soon as they noticed it and we were able to set the appointment in like a month's time, she got early intervention. So, yeah.
Now, what was your first response to the teachers? Because I know they will typically come to you and say, hey, I noticed that your daughter seems not to be doing this. She's not hitting this milestone.
Right.
What was your response originally?
I brought it to them.
Okay.
When I initially enrolled her, I brought what I was feeling to them. And me alerting them prompted them to pay more attention to Audrey. And I took child development in college, so I knew how the developmental stages are supposed to go. But I approached them and I alerted them that I was having these concerns. And so they watched her more, and I had a family specialist. Her name is Luz. She was wonderful, Miss Gloria. They set up the early intervention and we got the ball rolling early. Like immediately.
That's amazing.
Yes.
And so with the parents that you are working with now and with the being on the parent council.
Yes.
When you notice that there can be other services that will help their child, how do you go about approaching that?
So I just recently, I had my second in-person monthly support group meeting. And I have another, I don't know if I should call her my hero, Miss Marietta. This lady is like an angel to me, and she shares a lot of resources and things that I can use. And because of her, I'm able to share that with the other parents in my support group. And so I just recently came across a resource called ABC, Action Behavior Center.
Yes.
And I shared that with the group. They were all familiar with that, as well as ABA therapy.
Yes.
That works really good because they believe in like early intervention. They help your children learn how to tie their shoes, button buttons, potty train, all of those things. And let me say, potty training.
Yes, it can be. It can be tough.
It was a lot. It was a lot. It was a daunting task. But what I took away from that is that Audrey learned at her pace, not mine.
And so I do want to let everyone know, so she was just mentioning ABA. So ABA is one of the scientific methods used, the most effective and efficient one for children who are diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder.
Yes. The action behavioral therapy, they actually just had a Zoom meeting about a week ago, and listening to those parents and just hearing the same and similar stories let me know that I'm in the right environment, that I'm giving out the right resources, and I'm directing people in the right direction. So, yeah.
So I do want to go back to your first meeting. So your first support group meeting, how did that go?
The first one was really refreshing. There was a lot of tears flowing at that meeting because I think what was happening, like I was talking about the strong demand and a strong need in the community to have support, a lot of people felt not heard. They felt unheard in so many ways. And so when we kind of like just introduced each other and we talked about our children, their age, and when they got early intervention. And I mean, it was just tears flowing for about a good 20-30 minutes of the first half of that meeting. And that was really sentimental to me because it just kind of said that they needed this support group just as much as I did.
Yes.
And I was able to, from that first one, I now have an additional 5 members in my support group.
How did that make you feel?
It made me feel like I'm doing the right thing. It made me feel like I'm not doing this in vain. It also, the biggest thing that it made me feel is that I'm not alone.
Yes.
That I'm not alone. And I think for so long before the support group and looking for a support group, I felt alone.
Especially not seeing anyone else who were going through some of the things that you were facing yourself.
It was that, and it was also, you know, a lot of the times when people are not like experiencing the things you're experiencing, it sounds like you're talking to a brick wall because they're not able to relate. And so I wouldn't say that like my family and my friends wasn't there to be a listening ear or a soundboard or anything like that. However, when you don't have that experience, it can tend to feel like you're alone in the things that you're trying to convey to your friends or to your family members who's never experienced this. That can make you feel alone. It can make you feel like you're all in it by yourself. And creating my own support group, I was like, Sonya, who do you think you are?
Look at
like,
you, yes.
Who do you think you are? So yeah, it was really refreshing. And because it was such a success, again, I gained 5 more members that are now currently a part of the support group.
Now, after that meeting, after leaving that meeting, what were you thinking? What did you plan for the next meeting that you all were going to have?
So I went home and cried. I can be a crybaby. I went home and cried, and I had a moment to just speak with my higher power, like, God, what are you using me for? I could have never dreamed of being a person doing this kind of work. I learned to braid hair with Audrey because I didn't, because of her special needs, I didn't want, a stylist having to so-called deal with that. So I learned to start braiding hair. I thought that was my plan.
What you were supposed
what I
to
was supposed to do. And turns out I'm an advocate. I'm not a social worker by trade, but a community leader. I am a parent leader. And from that last meeting, we also, in addition, because at first it was all women, we also have a man now.
Amazing.
That made me really happy. That second one, we did a different location. We kind of did the same thing in terms of introduction and things like that, but there were two older parents that were able to share their experience. And because their children are older, they kind of gave us a little heads up of what we can expect because our children are younger. So that was a gain from the last support group meeting and a second one. And our third is going to be in 2 weeks, and that one will be virtual.
And so now I know when you started the support group for the parents who were just at your daughter's school.
Right.
How are you all growing now? Are you opening up to those in other schools, other locations?
So I am looking to grow in that way. It's funny because after the second one and those additional 5 members, they actually came to the in-person meeting. It prompted me to think that I need to start a non-for-profit organization. Again, something it was a thought, but I never thought about actually doing it. And just after seeing the growth and getting a male added to the group, and he's really active, it made me think I need to do a non-for-profit organization. I need to start one so that the work that I'm doing isn't just isolated to the parents at the school or the people that are in my support group, because they're spreading the word as well. And it's prompted me to make me think I need to start an organization.
So with starting that nonprofit organization, because we're going to get it done, what are your hopes for it? What do you see that nonprofit being able to do, not just in this community, but in other communities?
What I hope for it to do is to reach parents like me, in a sense that if they're feeling alone, that they'll have a place to call home and a place where they can resonate and feel like they're included, which brings me to my support group, the name of the group.
Yes.
We originally started with Rainbow Moms, but now since we have men joining, we changed it to Rainbow Parents. And that every color of the rainbow is inclusive.
I love that.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
So I hope to help other parents like me. I do.
So if there's a parent listening who would like to come to your next support group meeting, who feels isolated, what would you say to them?
You could reach me at smore845@gmail.com and arrange a time slot, so we can set it up to be added to the support group.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sonya, for joining us today. And thank you to everyone at home for tuning in and joining us. And remember, just like Sonya, we can all go out and make a difference. Nothing changes if nothing changes. We all have the power to change the narrative. Until next time, I'm your host, Sammika Cosey.